There is a thief that has never been arrested. It does not break into your house. It does not pick your pocket. It does not send you a suspicious email asking for your bank details. It works slowly, quietly, and completely legally. It takes a little from you every single day, and by the time most people notice how much is gone, the taking has already been happening for years. It has no face. It has no name on a wanted poster. Most people could not explain exactly how it works, even though it is working on them right now, today, while you read this, while you sleep, while you go about your life completely unaware of the mechanism operating in the background of everything you own. It is called inflation, and it is the most successful theft in human history. In 1970, the average price of a new car in the United States was $3,500. Today, the average is over $48,000. That is not because cars became 14 times better. The car you buy today has more features, yes, but it is still 4 wheels, an engine, and a way to get from one place to another. The fundamental product did not change by a factor of 14. The money measuring it changed. In 1970, the average house price in the United States was $23,000. Today it is over $400,000. The house did not become 17 times more valuable as a physical structure. The land did not improve. The bricks did not get better. The money measuring it lost value so dramatically that the number required to describe the same thing grew by a factor of 17. A cinema ticket in 1970 cost 35 cents. A postage stamp cost 6 cents. A gallon of milk cost about $1. A first-class flight from New York to London cost $550. These numbers are not ancient history. People alive today remember paying them. The money that bought all of those things in 1970 still exists if you kept it. You still have the same dollars, but those same dollars now buy approximately 85% less than they did then. Roughly 85 cents out of every dollar you might have saved in 1970 has been quietly taken from you by inflation over the intervening decades. Nobody sent you a bill. Nobody made an announcement. It just happened. Every single year, a little at a time. To understand how inflation works, you need to understand what money actually is. Money is not wealth. This is the thing that sounds obvious and is almost never truly internalized. Money is a claim on wealth, a representation of value. A ticket that says you are owed something real, a good, a service, an hour of someone's time. When you hold money, you are holding a promise. The promise is that when you present this money, you will receive something of real value in return. The value of that promise depends entirely on how many similar promises exist relative to how much real stuff is available to redeem them against. Imagine a small island. 10 people live there. There are 10 apples. There are $10, one per person. Each apple costs $1. Simple. The ratio is balanced. Now imagine the island's government decides to print 10 more dollars and give them to everyone. Now there are $20 and still 10 apples. Each apple now costs $2. The apples did not change. The real wealth of the island did not change. But every dollar is now worth half what it was before because it must compete with twice as many dollars for the same apples. Nobody on the island was robbed in any obvious sense. No one broke in. No alarm went off. But everyone who had savings in dollars just watched half their purchasing power disappear. The person who had saved carefully, who had $10 set aside for a rainy day, can now only buy 5 apples instead of 10. Their savings did not change. The world around their savings changed. The effect is identical to theft. The mechanism is different enough that most people never quite make the connection. This is inflation. And this is how it steals. The modern mechanism is more sophisticated than printing physical money, but the outcome is identical. Central banks, the institutions that manage national currencies, create money primarily through the banking system. When a central bank buys government bonds, it pays for them by creating new money that did not previously exist. The bank that sold the bonds now has new money. It lends that money out. The borrowers spend it. The spending circulates through the economy. The total amount of money in the system has increased without any corresponding increase in the real goods and services available to buy. Between 2020 and 2022, the United States Federal Reserve expanded its balance sheet from approximately $4 trillion to nearly $9 trillion. The European Central Bank expanded similarly. The Bank of England expanded. Central banks around the world, responding to the economic shock of the pandemic, created money at a pace that had no peacetime precedent. The inflation that followed surprised almost nobody who understood monetary history. It surprised almost everyone who had been told that modern central banking had solved the inflation problem. The Consumer Price Index in the United States reached 9.1% in June 2022, the highest in 40 years. In the United Kingdom, it hit over 11%. In the Eurozone, over 10%. In some emerging market economies, it went far higher. The theft accelerated, briefly and visibly, enough that people noticed this time, but the noticing mostly focused on the symptom prices rising rather than the cause money supply expanding faster than production. And then inflation came down and people stopped paying attention. But the prices did not come back down. The prices almost never come back down. The wealth that was taken during the high inflation period did not return. It redistributed. It went to asset owners, people who held things rather than money, and away from savers and wage earners who held currency. That redistribution is the real story. It is always the real story. Here's the part that makes inflation genuinely insidious rather than just unfortunate. It does not steal equally from everyone. If you own assets, property, stocks, gold, businesses, anything that holds real value, inflation actually helps you in nominal terms. Your asset is priced in the currency that is losing value, so the number goes up even if the real value stays the same. Property owners in inflating environments watch their net worth appear to grow while doing nothing. Stock market investors see nominal gains that partially reflect real returns and partially reflect the currency losing purchasing power. If you hold savings in cash, if you did what generations of cautious people were told to do, put money in a savings account, keep a rainy day fund, be responsible, be careful, inflation punishes you specifically and continuously. Your savings account pays interest that rarely if ever keeps pace with inflation. Every year, your purchasing power quietly declines. You are being taxed for being prudent. This is the mechanism that transfers wealth from those who hold currency to those who hold assets. And it is the mechanism that has been running continuously at varying speeds in almost every economy in the world for over a century. A saver who kept $10,000 in a standard savings account in the United States from 1971 to today, earning typical savings account interest rates, would have watched the real purchasing power of that money decline significantly even with the interest. The money grew in nominal terms. In real terms, in what it could actually buy, it shrank. An investor who put the same $10,000 into a diversified stock index in 1971 would have a dramatically different outcome. The stocks are priced in depreciating dollars too, but the underlying companies are real productive entities generating real earnings that grow with or ahead of inflation. The nominal number grew dramatically. The real purchasing power grew substantially. Same starting point, same time period, completely different outcome. The only difference is whether you held currency or held ownership of real productive things. Inflation wrote that difference. There is a number you should know, the rule of 72. Divide 72 by the inflation rate and the result tells you roughly how many years it takes for inflation to cut the purchasing power of your money in half. At 2% inflation, which was the official target of most major central banks for most of the last 2 decades, the purchasing power of your money halves in approximately 36 years. A generation. At 4% inflation, it halves in 18 years. At 7% inflation, it halves in approximately 10 years. At the peak inflation of 2022, running at 9% in some economies, purchasing power was halving in roughly 8 years. These are not catastrophic numbers in isolation. This is not Weimar Germany, where inflation ran at millions of percent and people literally used cash as wallpaper because it was cheaper than buying wallpaper. This is the quiet, managed, official, government-sanctioned version of the theft. The version that is slow enough that most people never connect the feeling of money not going as far as it used to with the mechanism causing it. But run those numbers across a lifetime. Run them across the savings of someone who worked for 40 years and put money aside every month in a savings account because that is what responsible people do. The amount taken is not small. It is not marginal. It is the difference between a comfortable retirement and one spent carefully rationing. The question that follows all of this is obvious. What do you do about it? The answer is not complicated, but it requires a shift in how you think about saving and holding money. Cash is a short-term tool. It is useful for paying bills, managing expenses, handling emergencies. Holding it beyond those functional purposes means voluntarily accepting the inflation tax. A cash emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of expenses is prudent. Cash beyond that sitting in a low-interest savings account is a donation to the inflation mechanism. Real assets ownership of productive things are the protection. Stocks represent ownership of companies that generate real earnings, employ real people, make real products, and grow their revenues at least roughly in line with inflation over time. Property held as an investment produces real rental income from real tenants with real needs that exist regardless of what currency is doing. Commodities, including gold, represent real physical scarcity that cannot be expanded by government decision. None of these are perfect. All of them carry risk. Stocks fall. Property markets correct. Commodities are volatile. The point is not that any of these things is a guaranteed safe haven. The point is that all of them have a fundamental property that cash does not. They represent real things, and real things, over time, tend to maintain their real value even as the currency measuring them loses purchasing power. The second thing is understanding inflation-adjusted returns. When someone tells you that savings accounts pay interest, ask what the real interest rate is, the nominal rate minus inflation. When someone tells you the stock market returned 10% last year, ask what inflation was that year. A 10% nominal return in a 7% inflation environment is a 3% real return. The number on the statement is not the number that matters. The number that matters is what you can buy with the money when you take it out. The third thing is time. Inflation compounds. So does investment return. The contest between inflation stealing your purchasing power and your investments preserving it is fundamentally a contest of compounding rates over time. Starting earlier gives your real assets more time to compound against the inflation rate. Waiting gives inflation more time to work on your savings unopposed. There is a broader point underneath all of this. Inflation is not a natural disaster. It is not like an earthquake or a drought, something that happens to economies from outside. Inflation is a policy outcome. It is the result of decisions made by central banks and governments about how much money to create and how fast. Those decisions are made for reasons. Sometimes the reasons are legitimate, preventing deflation, stimulating a stagnant economy, managing a crisis. Sometimes the reasons are less legitimate, financing government spending that could not be funded through taxation without political consequence. Managing debt that has grown beyond comfortable levels. In either case, the cost is distributed through inflation to everyone who holds currency. The cost does not appear on any budget line. It is not voted on. It is not announced in a way that makes the mechanism obvious. It is the invisible tax on savings and prudence that has been running in virtually every major economy for over a century. Understanding it does not make you cynical. It makes you accurate, and accurate is useful. Accurate lets you make decisions about how to hold your wealth that are based on how the system actually works rather than how it presents itself. The thief is not going anywhere. It has been operating continuously since long before you were born, and it will be operating continuously long after. But a thief you can see and understand and plan around is a very different problem than a thief you cannot see at all. You can see it now. I want to be honest about something uncomfortable. Everything I just described, the mechanism, the transfers, the quiet tax on savings, it is all completely legal. It is official policy. The people running it are not criminals. They are economists and central bankers and finance ministers making decisions within a system that has been built over generations. I am not telling you the system is evil. I am telling you it has consequences that fall unevenly. And the people who understand those consequences tend to sit on one side of the transfer. The people who do not tend to sit on the other. The saver who kept cash because they were told that was the responsible thing to do, they sat on the wrong side. Not because they did anything wrong, because nobody explained the mechanism to them. You now know the mechanism. What you do with it is your decision, but you are making that decision with information that not everyone has. And that is the only advantage that was ever really available anyway, not a hot tip, not insider knowledge, not luck. Just understanding how things actually work while others are still confused about why their money does not go as far as it used to. The theft continues. The only question is whether it continues to work on you the way it was designed to.